Good morning, everybody, and a happy Monday morning. I hope everybody had a fabulous, fabulous Mother's Day. I know I did. All right, as usual, we have a lot of royal family stuff and a lot of Harry, Meghan stuff. The stuff just keeps coming. I'm telling you, the stuff practically writes itself. So let's just jump in and get started. And let's go. We're going to start off with Prince Edward, who held a reception at Buckingham Palace on Friday afternoon for Duke of Edinburgh Award winners. He gave out gold awards at this special event. There were celebrities there, including Strictly's Amy Dowden and broadcaster and former footballer Alex Scott. There were 2,000 winners at this particular event, which is only a quarter of the people who will visit the palace to receive their awards over the next 2 days. Apparently, there was a question and answer session at the palace, and people were told that they should go on a Duke of Edinburgh expedition, and if they did, she would bring her friend and fellow Strictly professional Carlos Ghosn. Interesting. Let's move on now to Princess Anne. She and her husband, Vice Admiral Sir Tim Lawrence, went to Bailiwick of Guernsey. This also took place on May 9th. She attended a parade to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Guernsey at St. Peter's Port seafront, and they're visiting there to attend commemorations. King Charles wrote the message, and it said, and I'm quoting, "To my most loyal people at the island of Guernsey, I send my warmest greetings on this, the 80th anniversary of your liberation from enemy occupation." Charles then went on to reflect the significant milestone, emphasizing the importance of remembering those who had experienced the occupation firsthand. He continued, and I'm quoting, "I was interested to learn that this occasion will be commemorated and celebrated by people of all ages, with a focus on the ever-decreasing number who lived through the war, whether they were evacuees to the United Kingdom, stayed in occupied Guernsey, or were forcibly deported to Europe." Personally, I think the fact that Charles sent Princess Anne to this shows their close relationship and her importance as a senior working royal, because she frequently represents the king at significant national events and overseas engagements. She often steps in to represent King Charles during busy royal periods. And this event further demonstrates that cooperation within the royal family. And of course, Anne is the perfect person to do all of this. She's one of the hardest working royals, if not the hardest working royal. And I love it that her husband supports and goes with her during these events. All right, let's keep going. And sticking with Princess Anne, on Tuesday, she reopened the new Cook's Kitchen tin mine shaft with the unveiling of a plaque. So to do that, they took her down into the mine. How cool is that? She was given a brief on the geology, the water treatment plant, and the underground mine. Cool. Now let's move on to the Duke of Gloucester. This had to be a little scary. A man named Jack Lyons has been harassing him by contacting him repeatedly for help with a legal issue. He finally has been handed a restraining order. He was also convicted of harassing the granddaughter of Princess Alexandra and the royal household of Kensington Palace so he could get closer to Prince Richard. I mean, that's just the craziest thing. That just shows you that there are people that are just really unbalanced out there in the world. All right. Next up, this picture came out of Catherine basically showing her as Mother Earth, which I think is absolutely fabulous photo. We know how much she loves, nature. And Princess Catherine has now been given a great honor. She has had a rose named after her to celebrate her work highlighting the incredible healing power of nature and to help raise funds for cancer care. Catherine's rose is a coral pink floribunda. And the Royal Horticultural Society also said it has a rich perfume with hints of Turkish delight and mango. The rose is going to go on sale, and every plant sold, 5 pounds, is going to be donated to the Royal Marsden Cancer Charity, which will help the area. This is where Catherine went for her chemo treatment last year. And it's going to help establish a unique training program for clinical teams across the country. I just think that's lovely. They also said that they bestowed this to Catherine to raise awareness of the role that spending time outdoor plays in supporting people's mental, physical, and spiritual well-being. I love it. So, of course, the second this happens, here comes Meghan with her scraggly hair. She put out another one of those really stupid Instagram rolls with the song Lollipop, Lollipop, oh la. I mean, it's the dumbest thing. And of course, what is she doing? Arranging roses. Give me a break. You know, I have to tell you, I'm starting to feel a little bit of pity for this woman, because when you realize this is all she has is running around on her property and putting out these stupid little Instagram videos, it's really kind of sad. You should also know the video is at least a year old because Guy is in it. And it's supposed to give a sneak peek as to what's going on, because she writes, flower arranging with Guy last spring. Just wait till you see what I've been cooking up this year. More soon. And, she's hinting about what's coming in, next on the Netflix show. Yikes. All right. Next up, remember I showed you this the other day. Harry shared a gift with a World War II veteran ahead of his 100th birthday, and then the guy sent him a book. Well, come to find out, Harry didn't do it. The Invictus delegation did it while they were in Ghana, and Harry taped this man a message, and I've cut it down for you just because I think you'll find some of what he said a little bit interesting. Here you go.
Today, together, I avoid catching up.
All right, let's move on to what I consider one of the big stories for today. We've already talked about the Baka people. We knew there was an investigation going on. And this is a conservation charity linked to Prince Harry. They have now admitted that human rights abuses were committed by its rangers in the Congo following an independent review into allegations made by members of the community against the African Parks Rangers. Reminder, Harry has been involved with this organization since 2016. He was a president. Now he's on the board of directors. He was made aware. People wrote to him and made him aware of what was going on, and all he did was send it up the chain. He didn't do anything. And in the meantime, they have reached out to Harry for comment, and he won't comment on the investigation or its findings. A statement was put out that said, we regret the pain and suffering, and, we're sorry. And but you're sorry. You tortured people. Like, are you kidding? Survival International, which was one of the groups that raised the abuse concerns, has put out a statement because apparently the details of the investigation are not being released. We don't know the details of what was found. African Parks has refused to allow the findings to be made public. It has committed to more reports, more staff, more guidelines. But let's be honest, that hasn't prevented abuse and violations of international human rights by a decade or more. So, I don't know what's going to happen there. Has anybody noticed that absolutely everything seems to be going wrong in Harry's life? He's lost Sentebale. He's now on the board of a group that is abusing people. It just seems like everything in his life is going to crap. I mean, maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just what I'm seeing. But literally, it seems that he's just been, I don't know. I don't want to say the word, but I'm going to say it. I feel like he's being markled. Let me remind you that in September of last year, Harry, while he was in New York, promoted his work with African Parks. And at the time, it was under fire for the alleged abuses of the indigenous people in the national park in the Congo Basin. And when he had that meeting, he closed it. So while people could go to the Travelist thing and the Sentebale thing and all the other things that he did, he was on stage with Katie Couric. He participated in a panel discussion for African Parks, but Survival International slammed Harry and African Parks at that time for failing to address the abuses that had committed by African Park Rangers. And remember, he didn't want any questions about it. So the meeting that they had, the panel discussion that they had, was closed to the public. Very convenient. All right, moving on. We already know that William has absolutely no interest in mending fences with Harry, especially after the BBC interview. And Harry's been met with nothing but silence because he hasn't yet figured out that every time he opens that mouth of his and talks about the family, remember, don't explain, don't complain mantra. And every time he opens his mouth, he says something horrible about the family. It's being reported William doesn't even talk about Harry anymore. It's a taboo subject. And we also all know that this is happening because he's completely untrustworthy. Every time they've reached out to him or had a conversation with him, it's ended up either in the spare or it's ended up on Gayle King, Good Morning America. Could you imagine never being able to have a conversation with anybody in your family because you know anything that you say will be repeated? And at the same time, they're saying that Harry is never going to stop. He's never going to give up. And that's his problem. All right, let's go back to the whole security thing. Do you guys remember this article from March of 2020? I knew this story was untrue when it came out. Now, I want you to remember this is when they first left the UK, all right? And what the story said was that King Charles has agreed to pay £2 million a year, every year, in security costs for Harry and Meghan while they were living in the United States. We know when the Duchy of Cornwall records came out that Charles did give a one-time contribution of like $2 or $3 million. Harry and Meghan have earned over $60 million since they're living in the United States. They can afford to pay for their own security. Now remember, Donald Trump put out a tweet that says we're not going to give, security. U.S. taxpayers are not going to pay for them to have security. And of course, Harry and Meghan came back and said, we have no plans to ask the U.S. government for security resources. The problem with that is we know that Biden was using the Department of Homeland Security, U.S. taxpayer security, for the first year that they were here, I believe. And then after Harry changed his visa, that stopped. But he did get security from the U.S. taxpayer for the first year he was here. Now, it is being reported also that if Harry and Meghan want help with security from the Secret Service in the United States, which protects international diplomats, which Harry is not, they would have to make a request to the State Department. But ultimately, the decision rests with President Trump, and he's made it very plain that that ain't happening. Let's not forget that when they were in Canada, we found out that they were using security like Uber drivers. Go get me coffee, go get me dinner, go get me this, go get me that. And Canada finally had enough and said, we're not paying for the security anymore. And Norma Baker, who's the former Home Office minister, came out and said, you want to go to Los Angeles to make pockets of money and waterfalls of dollars cascading and they're private citizens. Why should people pay for them? You can't have a situation in which members of the royal family can choose to live anywhere in the world, however dangerous, and expect us to pay. The danger in Los Angeles is much more significant than in Windsor. And of course, now we know that Charles, after that one payment, never gave Harry or Meghan another dime. It is what it is. But why are we bringing up the whole security thing again? Well, that's very simple, because don't forget that Harry is actually suggesting now that the royal family actually wants him dead. That's basically what he said in his BBC interview. The royal family wants me to go. They want the past to, happen again. Now, one of the reasons that I believe Harry lost his security case is because of his behavior since he's left the royal family while crying about security. Let's take a look at that. First off, we know that they recently went to Mexico's Jalisco region, and the U.S. State Department has urged visitors to reconsider travel to that area. They recently found an extermination camp for the new generation Jalisco cartel, where people were tortured and killed. Then, of course, in April, let's not forget, Harry went to Ukraine in an area that's still being, attacked from Russia. He went there. In October of last year, Harry traveled by himself to Lesotho, where the Foreign Office warns the area is plagued by muggings and other violent crimes. We know that Harry and Meghan both went to Colombia in August of last year, and this is considered the most dangerous country in South America by the World Population Review. Of course, in May of 2023, they went through Nigeria, which is ranked as the 9th most dangerous country in Africa. And as they were leaving, they went to Kaduna, which the Foreign Office advertises against all travel to. You guys get my point? That area has bandit attacks with armed groups engaged in kidnapping and other violent crimes. This, of course, makes you wonder why they did this. Is it because these countries promised them the security that they're craving? Is it because Harry went there intentionally, hoping maybe something would happen that they could use towards their security case? And of course, we know that when nothing happened, then they staged the fake car chase in Manhattan. Now remember, when Harry was in London, he skipped his friend's wedding because he didn't have security, he said. And he didn't want to stay in the palace that has security. Instead, he stayed at a hotel. Well, you can imagine everybody's shock when a doorbell camera caught him going house to house looking for a friend. And he went to 3 separate houses. One resident said their housekeeper actually opened the door but didn't recognize him. And then we were shocked to see it was him on the camera. Remember, he stayed at a pal's home against security protocols. He had a Deliveroo sent to the front door, and the whole thing was just very odd. But if you zoom in on the picture, here's what I see. You see the van that's taking him around. It's like blacked out windows, and look right over his shoulder. You can see the security guy's head. So it's not like he was out there alone, but this just shows that he's such a hypocrite. He doesn't need the security. All right, finally, Beyonce's cowboy tour has started. Apparently, there's a lot of tickets available. It's not doing so well. Harry and Meghan, of course, showed up. And of course, somebody got them on camera. Harry looks absolutely bored while Meghan once again is waving her hands around. Harry did look to the left. He did notice the camera. That was very obvious. I just don't think he's enjoying himself. That's just my personal opinion. Now, I've also slowed down the camera just a little bit. I don't know who these people are standing around him. When the light hits, you can see their faces, but I don't recognize the woman with the glasses who's right next to him. My guess is that it's another Archewell employee because that's all she ever has around her. And also, there's a lady on the left with dreadlocks. I don't know who that is either. Very interesting. A big thank you to Royally Thoughts for this picture you're looking at. You know, I have to say, when I lose my security case and I feel like I'm in constant danger, of course, the first thing I do is go to a huge concert. And let's not forget, Meghan said in that podcast, she's past the prove me stage. I don't have to prove anything to you, but that's exactly what's going on at the concert. She wants to prove to everybody that her marriage is strong to Harry. She wants to prove to everybody that she has a fabulous life. She wants to prove to everybody that they're the most wonderful couple in the world. She wants to prove to you that they have lots of friends. She wants to prove to you that every waking moment and everything they do is just perfect. But the top thing for me was the hat, because who in their right mind believes that Harry ordered this hat? Somebody made it for him. It's got a British flag, an American flag, and the names of his children, and my love. Are you kidding? And thank you to this Twitter user for pointing out that the maker of the hat is Kimosabi, which means wrong brother. Perfect. Anyway, Harry looks just bored as ever. Whatever. He's got his life. All right, don't forget that starting today, the videos are dropping from our trip to Italy. It's on my other channel. The link is down in the description box, along with the link to my Twitter, my Gettr, my Rumble, my email, my Amazon wish list, a link to my father's book, which is still up for sale, and a physical address. For those of you who've donated to my coffee fund, thank you so much. And as always, you guys, have a great day.